I'm going to bounce right off of what Mimi was saying. One of the things that Eileen forgot to mention, I own this company called Corporate Measures, and what Corporate Measures does is we turn companies around. We take companies that are losing money and we turn them into companies, hopefully, that are making a lot of money. And the way we did that is we got everybody involved. So it wasn't just a matter of the managers and the CEOs and the presidents and all that stuff. We go to the people that work there. We go to bankers and the financiers and the vendors. We go to the customers. So we go outside of our little family and we'd engage everybody in the process. And that's what we have to start doing. We've got to go outside of our family. It's really comfortable to preach to the choir because we're really good at that. We sit down, we have meetings, and there are Tea Party groups and whatever, conservative groups and libertarian groups, and we kind of spread that message, but it doesn't get past that canister. It kind of stays in there. So what we have to do is find a way to get it outside, and that's why I started this thing called Shattering America's Trance. It's a workshop, and the intention of this workshop is to help people learn ways that we can start to just move out into the world, get that conservative message or truthful message, or whatever you want to call it, but get the real story of what's going on with light rail and sustainable development out into the rest of the world. We have a great country. We're known for freedom. People come here because they want to be free. It's a great place to start a business. We can start without anything, and all of a sudden, wow, you can make something out of it. Or just make a comfortable living for yourself. But that's all starting to fade. And it's fading because we've got things like the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act actually puts the federal government in charge of the means of your health care. They control what your health care is going to look like, what you have to pay for it, what an insurance policy looks like, and even what your doctor can and can't do. Then we have this crazy thing called sustainable development that gives them the same total power over your property, where you're going to live, what social justice looks like, what your house is going to be worth several years down the road, and how you get from point A to point B. And then we have this thing called Common Core. That trains a generation of your children to believe that all that crazy stuff that I just said is acceptable. That somehow the common good, the collective, is more important than the individual. But we can get all this back. And that's what we're about. We're going to find a way to get this back. First, we have to understand, how in the world did so many Americans fall into a trance that they have no idea what's going on? Well, part of it's they watch the news. Now, if you look at the news on TV, you think, well, hey, we got Fox out there. They're really good. They'll straighten everything out. Really? If you look at back in January 2014, 2.32 million were watching Fox. That's not too bad. But while they were doing that, 5 million were on ABC, 7 on NBC, and 15 million were watching CBS. So while 2 million people heard that the Affordable Care Act was driving costs up because it wasn't just premiums anymore, it was premiums stacked on top of fines and fees and increased deductibles. It was costing me so much I can't even stand up under the weight of it anymore. 27.5 million people were hearing that, hey, costs are rising at a slower rate than they ever had before. Want to go to the government? Maybe they'll give us the information. Even if you happen to be a legitimate news organization and you go to the federal government and you say, hey guys, we need some expedited data here to find out what's going on with the EPA. Well, in 2013, of 468 requests, 458 were denied. 97% of the time, the State Department denied it, Homeland Security, 94%, and so on and so forth. So much for, what was that called? The most transparent government in history. Okay, not quite. Politicians play us one against the other. They love to see a war on women, till the arrows and slings are falling, back and forth, and people won't even communicate anymore. So we have conversations like we had earlier here today. What's my name? What are you going to call me? It doesn't matter. We have a common threat out there, and we're all on the same team here, and we have to recognize what that is. So we have to stop allowing people to manipulate us, and we have to start developing a common language and a relationship with the people around us, not just in this room. I mean, we're all good friends in here. Some left, some right, but all good friends in here, and that's what really matters. When we step outside here, things begin to change. It can be difficult to have a conversation with others, and that's intentional, and I'll show you how that works. We got some great spokespeople out there, good personalities, and these are all great guys. There's a big problem with it. If they were really getting that message outside there, do you think Barack Obama, John Boehner, and Harry Reid would be in office right now? No, they wouldn't be. So they're doing a good job. You think they would? They're doing a good job of getting the message, but it still is inside a container, and it's not getting to all the people that we need to get. So what we have to do is leverage the knowledge that we have and increase our influence with other people. So there's a lot of good news out there. We think, oh, but everybody's in the pocket for this kind of crazy, far, far left kind of stuff that's coming out. And that's absolutely not true. If you go back to a poll done by Gallup in 2012, 52% of Americans either are self-identified as conservative or they tilt that way. 28% go the other way. Okay, so that means we just about outnumber the other side, not quite, but almost 2 to 1. So how come it's so hard for us to get our message out there? That 18 to 29-year-old that we're so sure these millennials are all in the back pocket of the Obama administration? Not really. Take a look at it. 28% of the young folks in our country today identify themselves as liberal. And by the way, that can be good and it can be not be good. We can't just say you're liberal so I don't like you. There's lots of good things. Some things I believe in are liberal. 28% also identify themselves as conservative. So we're evenly matched. And if you slide down the age brackets, it gets more and more toward the conservative side as we move on. So there is an opportunity to remove that barrier. But the new communicators going forward that are going to save our country and turn this into a successful turnaround of our nation, it's not going to be these people. I mean, they're good people. I'm not trying to diminish their value in any way. But it's going to be the regular people. People sitting in this room. Because there's a lot more of us than there are radio personalities as valuable as they are. So we've got to be able to get that word out here. So what we want to talk about a little bit is how can we do that? You see, it's really difficult sometimes to talk to people about things like sustainability and global warming and the Affordable Care Act. Common Core's not so bad. That's getting out there pretty good, and that's a good one. That's something about to leverage off of, too. But it's no accident that it's difficult to talk to people. There's a thing, do you ever know ever heard of the word schema? Do we all know what a schema is? Yeah, see, our brain is a rather efficient instrument, and it's made not to have to think too hard about stuff. So what we do is we categorize things. So if we see a group of people, we kind of say, oh, that's what they are. And that's kind of what happens. You say liberal, oh, we get this picture. Or we say Obama, and whoops, we get that picture. So we create all these things inside. Being a conservative, there is a schema. I think Vicki was mentioning it a little bit earlier. If you're a conservative, what do people automatically think of? They think you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're hateful, you want to push grandma over the cliff, you want to take her health insurance away, you want grandpa eating out of dog food cans. So this is the image that people have of a conservative. So how are you going to have an intelligent, open conversation with someone that you don't know all that well when they already think you're a racist and hateful and you're a bigot? So we need to get rid of that before we ever get started. I had an old professor in school one time that said, John, you couldn't stand on a street corner and sell several dollars for 50 cents a piece if people didn't trust you first. And that's important. We need to get to that. We need to get to that spot. So we have to find a way to remove the conservative schema. So we're going to talk about that. And there's lots of different things we can do. We can learn to restrain our language so we don't dump on people. We can connect with people more effectively. So let's just talk about this first little guy here, learning. I had a friend, he died this past year, Christopher Hitchens. Maybe some of you guys know Chris. Ever heard of Christopher Hitchens? He was from Britain. He's a British journalist and an author. Had a home in Washington, D.C. He was self-made guy. I mean, nobody told Christopher what to think or how to think it. Well, I met him one day at a rally down in Washington, D.C. It was an anti-Bill Clinton rally. And I said, hey, you're half socialist over here. He kind of went both ways. But he said, he's half socialist. Why in the world would you want to be down here at an anti-Clinton rally? And he says, well, actually, I can't stand what he's done. I says, what do you mean? He says, he's a liar. He says, I know the guy's lying. I said, I don't like, no matter what you call me, I don't like liars. I says, okay. And the guy had a meeting with him. Meeting was over. I talked to Chris Hitchens. He came back and he says, wow, what a guy. I says, wait a minute. You walked into the Oval Office or wherever you met the guy. You walked to meet the guy. You have a meeting with him. And you can't stand him. And then all of a sudden, what a guy. What happened to take you from I don't like the guy to, hey, he's not so bad? How did you get there? And he said this to me, and this registered. He said, when you're with Bill Clinton, he looks you in the eye, and you are the only person in the room. He hears every word you say. And I knew at that moment that he heard me, and he cared about me, and he cared about my opinion. That's why I changed my mind. Okay. Now, I don't know if that would completely change my mind, but I know this. When you listen to people carefully, it begins to open doorways. When you hammer people with your ideas and all the brilliant stuff that we know about Affordable Care Act and Common Core and where Common Core came from, and yes, it's not state standards and how it's funded and all the rest of it. When you start dumping that on people, what do? What do? They retreat. They go, oh, okay, all right. And then they create another schema. They are right. They are racist and bigot and kind of hate-filled and all this stuff that I don't really want to hear about. So we need to get past that. So I'm going to show you a little technique that we can do to do the very same thing that Bill Clinton does. Because if we want to capture people's attention and have them respect us, then we need to use some of those just good communicational techniques. How many in this room have ever asked somebody at one time, hey, how you doing today? Now, you really didn't care exactly. You just, it's kind of, hey, just passing the time, how you doing? But all of a sudden, you got a response. And the response was something like, oh, well, my wife and I are going up to Puget Sounds. We're going to be driving up that way, and I had to get the oil change. I went over to Midas, but, on the way over, my back started hurting a little bit, so I stopped by the chiropractor and had that taken care of. And, oh, thank God I got there on time. Midas, they have that thing. It's a lifetime guarantee. It's absolutely wonderful. Well, meanwhile, you're almost asleep and trying to get out of there, right? Okay, because we didn't listen to what he has to say. We all have things like that. So what we're going to do is a little exercise today that takes about 2 minutes. So I'm going to ask everybody here just to pair up and sit right next to right next to the person next to you. Yep, we're going to pair up. It's going to be real easy. And one person is going to be the learner, which is what I use for the word listener. We're going to be a learner. And the other one is going to be the speaker. Okay? We all partnered up here? All right, we're all ready to go. Now, speaker, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of the dullest, most boring, most uninteresting event that happened to you over the past week that you can think of that would guarantee to put a turtle to sleep. So I want you to just think about that, and then you're going to share that with your partner. Not yet, not yet. Now, once you share that with your partner, here's what I want your partner to do. I want you to be wrapped in this as if there was a new Ken Follett novel that Celeste just gave us, and you just can't wait to get into this conversation. So here's how you're going to do that. I want you to look at the person with intention. I want you to be concerned. I want you to be interested in what it is that they have to say, and then I want you to imagine there's kind of like a bubble between you and them. Just the only thing in the world is you and that other person. Okay, and we're going to do this for about. I'm going to try not to make this painful. We'll keep it down to about 30 seconds. Okay, so the speakers. Are you all ready with your example of what you want to talk about? Everybody? Oh, well, take a minute then, and just give me a little heads up. Don't start talking yet. Just come up with your idea. You got your idea? We got one over here. Everybody got their idea? You got one? Okay. Everybody have an idea? So you're going to talk about something that really nobody cares about. Okay? But the other person is going to be so interested in what you have to say. All right, on a count of 3, we're going to go. Talk softly so it interfere with everybody else. Ready, begin. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, everybody stop. Stop. Who had a really painful story to tell here? Really, really painful? How many people felt like they actually were being heard, though? The other guy actually heard me. Really? You did? Good. All right. Well, no thanks to you. It was her that did the work. Yeah, exactly. And this is important to us because, frankly, if we listen with curiosity, we tend to give greater credibility to people who care about us and people who think in the same way that we think and feel. This is so important if we're going to close down the bridges. When you walk out into the community and you want to start telling people about light rail transit when they really could care less other than the fact that it looks really slick in the pictures, you've got to have something more than, well, it was $300 million, but now it costs $707 million. Nobody cares. So this is one way to begin to close those gaps down. We have to learn not to dump on people and tell them so much information. We have to learn how to communicate with different information to different people in different ways. The program that we train is called, again, it's called Shattering America's Trance. Yes. We talk about the hidden trance, connecting with community members. This is what we just did. This is connection. But there's a lot of other things that you can do to really build a concrete bridge between you and your friends, your neighbors. Organizing community coalitions. Remember we talked about Barack Obama? I almost forgot his name. Barack Obama, who was this great community organizer. Do you know he never was a community organizer? He went into communities that were already organized. He went to churches that were organized, neighborhoods that were organized. He was a community, he was an activist, an agitator, I'm sorry. He was a community agitator. And that's actually a good word because there's ways to agitate that are not negative at all. It's just agitation is just a matter of getting people to do stuff. So we're going to show how you can get people to do stuff. Understanding your neighbors. I call our neighbors the ideologues, the daydreamers, and the deluded. So these are the people that we're going to come in touch with when we're out there in the neighborhood. And you can't do much with the ideologues, but the daydreamers are wide open for information because they really aren't interested. They just need somebody to present things in the right way. And the deluded think they know everything because they got it all off ABC, NBC, HUD, EPA, UCLA, and Steven Spielberg. So they're convinced that they know everything that there is to know. So that's a little more challenging, but there's ways to communicate them. You can deal with bullies, and it's kind of fun to deal with bullies and know-it-alls. Changing the message and the delivery, and then how to become your community's current events source. What we want is we want people to look at you and say, Todd, you're the guy that I go to. If there's questions in my community, you're the guy I go to. Karen, if I have a question about Common Core, you're the gal that I'm going to go to get that answer. We want to begin to establish ourselves as a source of influence and information throughout the community. Then what happens? Their circles become our circles. And all of a sudden, instead of sitting here and saying, well, how can I fill this room up next time? You're stunned because within 30 days, things exciting begin to happen. We provide people with, I almost forgot about this. We provide people with DVDs. In fact, there's one for sale right in the back. It's called Straight Talk About Planning. This is the planning business, kind of behind the scenes, broken down into very simple little steps, 4 to 5 minute PowerPoint presentations that you can show to somebody in 4 to 5 minutes. Show it to a neighbor or show it to a public official. In the workshop, what we do is we have a whole campaign that's worked out. So you can kind of pick and choose like a Chinese menu. Do I want to focus on just one-on-one contacts, groups, communities, public officials? And then we give you a whole 5-step program that you can go through step by step. We also have an individual page that you can go to. It's a private group, and that private group is called America Working Together. So as you go out into the community and you start to meet new people, you can share your ideas, your successes, and your failures, and the things that do and don't work so that other people learn from you or they don't have to make the same mistakes that you did. We're also setting up a website right now. And by the way, we can use some help so any people want to get involved, so that you don't have to have all the answers. There's so many topics. There's so many Hydra heads here, this Common Core and the Affordable Care. Dodd-Frank Amendment is another one that controls all finances in the country, even can kick people right out of their being the CEO of a company. We show you how you can engage, how you can get the information and have it all at your fingertips just by downloading it, and suddenly you'll be the genius in the neighborhood without actually doing anything. This new business venture is called Shattering America's Trance. It's a workshop. I believe that if Americans can come together, if we've got the messages, we've got the information, we just need to find a way to get out there in the community and share it with other people. We can't stay within those little containers. I believe in this country. I love it. And I know the people here can save this and bring it back to what it always has been. Thank you.